Joining me now is Atul Keshap, former American ambassador turned CEO of the U.S.-India Business Council. Atul, it's great to see you as always. Big news which can change maybe in a few moments because the way U.S.-India is negotiating, very public. President Trump announcing as we film this that he wants to apply a 25% tariff on India. We've seen the back and forth. We see the two governments getting together in many different realms. Is this just a posturing move by the president?
Well, look, I mean, he's a New York real estate negotiator, so everything is fair game. Look, it is a bit of negotiating in public, but what I'm hoping is going to happen, and I think, Ravi, your audience wants that as well, is that the U.S. and India, the world's two biggest democracies, are going to close a meaningful trade facilitation agreement. I represent 200 member companies that are deeply invested in the notion that the U.S.-India economic relationship can grow substantially. And a trade agreement sends a very powerful psychological message, a positive message to investors, to workers, to companies. So I hope it gets done, and I hope that this gets done real soon.
Give me a sense of the disconnects, because, you know, for those of us that grew up here, India and the U.S. were not connected diplomatically very well, let alone through trade. But obviously India's growth has been precipitous, and we're seeing a lot of American companies, build and establish themselves within India. Does this cause roadblocks for those of us in the United States that are witnessing Silicon Valley companies relocate and build huge operations out of India? Is that going to be challenged by some of this tariff business, or is this just kind of par for the course?
Well, look, if you're talking about some of the high-end stuff like artificial intelligence, semiconductors, electronics manufacturing, defense collaboration, the absence of a trade deal may have an impact because the U.S. is stitching up trade deals with Japan, with EU, even possibly with China, Indonesia, Vietnam. So India risks being left behind. I hope that it will not be left behind. But if you pan out a little bit, look at us. We're in LA right now. We've got a room full of people that we just hosted at the USIBC 50th anniversary that all love India, are engaged with India, or invested with India, and want to see that relationship grow. So beyond Washington and Delhi, beyond the governments, there is a tremendous amount of activity, people to people, scientific establishment, academia, that is still going to continue, but it's going to be a little more complicated if we don't have a trade agreement. So to smooth things out and reduce friction, we should get it done.
Give us some context. You spent a number of years in the State Department. How were these negotiations in the past? What was India asking for back then, and what was America asking for, and why are things so dramatically different, other than the fact that obviously President Trump has a very different style?
Look, every negotiation in government ultimately goes to the top. When I worked on the nuclear deal, decisions were made by President Bush and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. That's how it is. The boss is the boss. This is the same. The negotiators have done a very careful job. They've done a lot of work with each other. India was a prime mover in these negotiations. They've been talking for 3 or 4 months. They've concluded a very reasonable set of mutual accommodations to facilitate trade, reduce barriers for entry for either country, and now it has to go to the bosses. My feeling is this is where the bosses have got to talk to each other on the phone and finalize the deal for the good of both of our democracies and for the strategic standing of the United States and India in world affairs. We're Quad partners. We have shared adversaries. We should get this thing done. It is at the leader level. It is ready to go. It needs the deal to be closed.
Now, when you're behind closed doors and you're working with a lot of top flight companies that are heavily invested in this relationship, when you look at the tone and tenor of this approach towards India versus, let's say, China, which is the number 2 economy in the world, do you think they're taking a different tactic, or is it the same tactic the U.S. is applying to China?
Well, I think this is, as far as I can tell, because I'm not in the room, I'm a retired U.S. government official, this is brass knuckles football, brass knuckles negotiating, whether it's with the EU or Japan or China or India or whoever. But that means there's a lot of honesty in it. And honesty is the way forward in a negotiation. You can be diplomatic, use flowery language. I've done that for many decades. But at the end of the day, honesty is what strikes deals. And you can call President Trump many things, but he's been very, very honest. Perhaps in ways that aren't, to the highest standards of diplomacy, but in honesty, there is a reflection of truth, and truth is the way we're going to get through this. So I would say that there's been a lot of truth-telling behind closed doors between both governments. Now there needs to be deal-making.
And is there a deep understanding from the newer American officials? I mean, many of the administrators have not been in government and perhaps don't know the whole history of why India is close to Russia, why India has been working with Iran, for example, for decades. I mean, India has actually a pretty good relationship with so many countries, maybe other than Pakistan. So are you aware, I would imagine that these folks are aware of some of these historical relationships?
Well, I think they are. I mean, look, there's a lot of awareness of India and India's red lines and sensitivities, but the president has spoken very clearly about his own red lines and his own sensitivities. So this is where the world's two biggest democracies have to accommodate one another. They have to find a way through it. I think that if India and the United States don't get this deal done, when all these other countries are getting deals done, it's to our mutual disadvantage. And there will be further consequences that neither one of us wants. Our business communities won't want. We will not be able to collaborate on the high-tech issues where the United States leads the world. Our FDI will be more hesitant about going to India. We have to get this done because psychologically it's critically important. So tough talk can happen between friends. Sometimes it even creates a new echelon of trust. But at the end of the day, the president has been very clear about his feelings, his red lines, his concerns. I don't need to amplify that. The president can speak for himself. But the two governments, I think, have a very clear sense of each other's concerns. Now the question from the business community, from ordinary people, from all the people here in LA at our event who are proponents of the U.S.-India relationship is, can Delhi and Washington, can the president and the prime minister actually show the world that they can conclude a meaningful and good agreement?
And